Whereas somebody can be really good at what they do and keep doing it, whether it's successful or not. I think David makes a point of changing, keeping changing.
It wasn't until that era was over that you realised how tedious it had been, because the only bands that got signed, or the only people that anybody paid any attention to, were people who had already been involved with something else that was successful. So Band A would break up, and the members would go off and form bands B, C, D and E, and they were the ones that got the recording contract. So there's a law of diminishing returns involved in all of this, you know. But Bowie obviously stood aside from that and remained, as I say, his own man throughout this rather sort of creatively destructive process.
The album was also Bowie's most directly personal to date, with standout moments like the track Kooks acting as a charming reflection on his newly established family unit.
There was that track Kooks on Hunky Dory, which was about him and Angie, because he was going strong with Angie at that time, and I think she had quite a lot of input into what he did too.
The family factor had come in. I mean, there'd been Angie and the son, of course, and you know, that is of course celebrated on the song Kooks, whether you think it's a very cheesy song or whether you think it's a lovely song.
Will you stay in a lover's story? If you stay, you won't be sorry, 'cause we believe in you.
There is a vast and appalling catalogue of completely dreadful songs written by otherwise great songwriters about their children. There are a lot of songs which should really have gone no further than the nursery, really. But Kooks, I think, works. It's a very charming, simple little pop song. It's very, very suggestive of Ray Davies, I think. It's a very Kinks-like melody and a very Ray Davies-like vocal delivery.
Wonder boy, life's just begun. Turn your sorrow into wonder. Dream alone, don't try, don't run. Life is only what you wonder. Will you stay in a lover's story? If you stay, you won't be sorry, 'cause we believe in you. Soon you'll grow, so take a chance.
Also of a directly autobiographical slant were the album's explicit references to Bowie's influences. A notable contrast from the usual image of his artistic process being something enigmatic and unique.
There are 2 or 3 tribute tracks, like to Bob Dylan, and there's one to Andy Warhol, which Warhol apparently hated. I don't think those tracks really quite work. I mean, lyrically, he seems to sort of drift, really. You can sense his attention not being quite on the job. There's strange tracks, really. I think that Bowie's best when he's being this kind of almost like missionary narcissist, you know, concentrating solely on himself and the whole sort of motions and movements of his own career and psyche or whatever.
Andy Warhol looks a scream, hang him on my wall. Andy Warhol, silver screen, can't tell them apart at all.
I think maybe from Warhol he was getting this kind of, you know, the instant pop art gratification idea. I mean, that's what made him interesting in the 70s. He wasn't talking about Robert Johnson or blues artists as people like Clapton were or whatever. He was talking about art scenes, you know, and that kind of, so you know, you know, and it kind of brought you into, it made things interesting.
I really don't quite buy the idea of Bowie as an especially enigmatic figure. I think he's always been actually pretty readable, and really pretty explicitly readable, and probably quite deliberately readable, but I think that's also the reason he's been so influential. You don't get to be an especially influential and important artist if people can't figure out what the hell you're doing.
I guess if I hadn't had any sort of musical inspiration of any kind, I would have been a writer. I was a straight writer. I would have written novels, I think.
There is a mystique about him, and people expect him to be quite mysterious. I don't think he is. I think he's just like me and you. But people see him as something special.
The aesthetics of Hunky Dory were also clearly pointing the way to Bowie's next, and arguably career-defining, artistic move. the introduction of a strange new character and his band known as Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, a project which would see him working once more with musician John Hutchinson.
Mick Ronson and David phoned me at work and said, we're going to New York next week, can you come? And it was as quick as that. I just told my boss I was leaving and going to New York. And I joined an already fairly successful outfit in New York. And the first gig was at Radio City Music Hall, huge gig. And it ended with Long Beach Arena, another huge gig. And we went right around the world with that band. I just stood at the back, played 12-string, did falsetto vocals badly, and thoroughly enjoyed it. His clothes were unusual. He's very theatrical. He had the Japanese designer make him jockstraps and feathers and amazing costumes. And there were costume changes as well as the lights and the big sound system. And he was ahead of the game. He did that before a lot of other people even thought about it.
He was trying things. He was looking here, he was looking there, he was looking at mime, looking at theatre, looking at songwriting, looking at image. He was looking at it all, and Angie helped him, I think. She helped him in his search, and I think suddenly he found it, and he put the band together, and that's what they decided to look like, and I think he loved it.
Bowie would soon be established as a fully fledged pop culture icon. Yet it is often all too easy to forget the legacy of those earlier albums, the work that acted as a stepping stone to the musical legend of the present day.
You know my heart's in the basement, my weekend's at an all-time low. Well, he's down on the street and he's trying hard to pull Sister Flo.
I think Space Oddity will forever be the album Bowie made when he had the hit. I think Man Who Sold the World is a dark horse. That is now considered as a real bare, psychotic piece of work. That's Bowie's big, underrated album. And then you've got Hunky Dory, which is where he kind of, I think, found his feet. But it's still the transition before the Big Bang, which was Ziggy.
The early albums generally, I think, certainly stand up musically. I mean, just in that simple respect. You know, they're very finely crafted. Bowie is a very, very good songwriter. I mean, you know, you kick the tires of them, you know, you shake the girders of these things, and they stay up very nicely.
Pop music now is such, I don't think anybody will ever be at the centre of things in the way that Bowie was in the early, up until 1975, 1976. It's almost impossible now for one person to completely bestride the arena as Bowie once did. But he's still always at least interesting. And after making records for 40 years, there's very, very few people you get to say that about.